Good evening, folks. This is Bill Breeden. Welcome to Constellation Tour number 49. Tonight we're going to talk about the obscure constellation Caelum, the Chisel. Caelum is located in the southern celestial hemisphere, and it's south of Orion and Lepus, just next to Eridanus the river, and above or north of Dorado. Caelum is one of those constellations that's not very well known, and you really have to be further south to see it. So I've set Stellarium up here for a location in French Guiana in South America, just to get us to a southern enough latitude so that it's above the horizon. Caelum is best viewed between December and February each year. So we're set up here for December the 25th, 2020 at about 8 p.m. with a field of view of 60 degrees, which simulates the view by naked eye. So let's set our light pollution to a suburban location. And let's spend a little time on Caelum. There's not a lot in this small constellation, but we're doing a tour for every constellation in the sky, so that includes this one. So how would we go about finding Caelum? First thing is to be far enough south, since it is well below the celestial equator, and you need to be outside in the winter months. That's winter in the northern hemisphere and summer in the southern hemisphere. So if you're somewhere near the equator, it really doesn't matter as much. So where is Caelum? Well, let's find Orion first. It's always a good place to look and start. And we see Orion over here tonight, over here in the east. And you see Betelgeuse and Bellatrix and Rigel and Saiph. And if you remember from my constellation tour on Eridanus the river, Eridanus the river begins at Rigel and winds its way around and ends at the star Achernar, right here, the alpha star in the river Eridanus. So Caelum, even from a moderately light polluted location, isn't as hard to find as you might think. Simply look for Rigel and Achernar, and remember that the river kind of juts outward from Rigel and then winds its way all the way down here to Achernar. So on the way, the river passes by a lot of other constellations, including Caelum. And if you look between those two bright stars, Rigel and Achernar, you'll see this pattern of 4 stars right here. 2 here and 2 here. I believe they're part of the river, but they sort of point in this direction right here, and that's where you'll find Caelum. So let's turn on our constellation lines, and you'll see the stars I was talking about are right here. They're sort of in the bend of the river of Eridanus, and just down here in this general direction is Caelum. And actually Caelum encompasses this whole area inside this boundary here. So these two sets of 2 stars here do point in the general direction of Caelum. So that's one way you can find it. Let's see. That's probably the easiest way. There are probably some other star hops you can do to get to it, but I would probably use that. So what do we have to observe in Caelum, the Chisel? I do have one double star listed, and that's Gamma Kaley. So let's search for that. And let's look through the finder here from our suburban location. Give you about a 6-degree actual field of view, which simulates the view through a typical finder scope or binoculars. And it looks like Gamma Kaley is an 8th magnitude star located 185 light years away. And with medium to high power, which we're going to simulate here, it does split nicely. It's got a brighter yellowish gold member and then a bluish white, mostly white, fainter member. So now this is showing Gamma Kaley as magnitude 4.5. Let me see something here. Got myself a little confused. Okay, yeah, Gamma Kaley is actually magnitude 4.5, so it's visible to the naked eye from a reasonably dark location, you know, a suburb. Okay, well, as far as Messier objects, there are none in Caelum. And notable deep sky objects, there are none either. So let's see what Caelum looks like from a dark site. And again, to find Caelum, look for Rigel and Orion and Achernar and Eridanus. And between the two, you're going to see these two pairs of stars, and they sort of point in the direction of Caelum right here. So let's look at the mythical figures. And you can see here's this pair of two stars that sort of point in the direction of Caelum, the Chisel. So from a dark location, Caelum is just it's depicted as this line here, and that's really about it. So let's bring up our constellation boundaries, and let's just use Stellarium as a star chart here and see what we can find within its borders. Let's turn on our deep sky objects. Labels. There we go. Now we can use Stellarium as a star chart. And you can see I've just fit the entire constellation of Caelum here in a 13-degree apparent or true field of view. And a few deep sky objects begin to appear. There's some NGCs, there's an IC over here. So it looks like there's an interesting one down here in southern Caelum. Let's have a closer look at this. See, it's hard to read that because they're superimposed on each other. The Carafe group? Can't say I've ever heard of that. Let's check out one of these galaxies. It's NGC 1958 and located 221 million light years away, shining at magnitude 14. So I'm simulating the view here of these two galaxies through a 19mm panoptic eyepiece, and you can see that Stellarium does not have images of these galaxies in its database. So when you see just these red ovals, Stellarium's just telling you where the object is, but it's not showing you a visual of it, which is fine. We're sort of using it as just a star chart right now anyway. 14th magnitude, that would require some aperture. I wouldn't use less than a 12-inch telescope to try to see these. So let's see if there are any other deep sky objects that we can find here while we're in Caelum. Let's look up to the north a little bit. Looks like there's 2 NGCs and 1 IC. NGC 1679 is a 12th magnitude galaxy. It's a barred spiral, and you have to use your imagination because it's not in a picture of it isn't in Stellarium. What's really nice about this simulation is, when I'm actually out observing and I'm in an area of the sky where I really don't have any objects on my list that I'm looking for, I can just open up a star chart and look for objects that are shown that I've never seen before. And that's sort of what we're simulating here tonight. Oops, not too far. Okay, I'm going to turn my labels back off, turn my boundaries back on. And let's go over how to find this obscure constellation one more time. Again, you want to be out between December and February, far enough south where you can get to this constellation, and start with Rigel and Orion and Achernar. Remember, the river runs between them. Look for these two sets of two stars, and they point you right in the direction of Caelum. So this concludes my tour tonight of Caelum the Chisel. Good night and good seeing.